everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about a more serious topic. I think a lot of you know me from my mental health video that I filmed a while ago. And I noticed that while I talked about my mental health and I show glimpses of it, like going to the doctor and taking my medication, I've never fully disclosed what happened to me and what led to this point of, well, having depression, struggling with depression, and having had mental health problems. So in this video I want to do an in-depth in in-depth dive of it and just want to talk about it. I know I'm making myself really vulnerable with this video, so please be kind to me. This is just my journey, and I know that everything I did was probably not perfect and that it's my fault too that things happened this way. But yeah, it is what it is, and this is my experience with it. I hope everyone understands. So first, let's go back in time to 2020. Back in January of 2020, I started my job at my previous company. Before that, I was in another pretty bad company. It was a startup. It was the working conditions were pretty bad, and I just lasted about 6 months. So when I started my new company in January of 2020, I thought that things would finally get better and that I would finally have a stable job with stable working hours and a stable income. So everything really seemed great in the beginning. And people who know me from 2020, like close friends, they probably know me as a more different person. Not personality wise, because I don't think I have changed a lot in terms of personality, but more when it comes to my energy and how, I don't know how to describe it, but back then I was someone who used to go out a lot after work, who was, of course I got tired, but I was never tired to the point that I could not get up anymore or that I felt like I reached my limit. And I was able to go to the office 5 times a week. Of course I had my downs and ups like every other person, but I was never not able to do something. Like I was always able to do things, go to work like a normal person. And for the first 3 months at my new company, everything seemed great. It was fine. Of course, there were hard moments. Learning everything new in Japanese was really hard. The people were not always nice. They were really strict. But it was fine, and I was fine with it. I was happy. I also had a coworker who joined the same time as I did, and we were really close. We were really close friends, and we would, I don't know, complain about the company to each other and gossip, and she was just my work buddy, like my office best friend. I loved her. And in March of 2020, end of March of 2020, I think, is when, of course, COVID happened and when we went into remote, full remote. My company offered full remote. So I went to home office, or yeah, I got into home office. And around that time, a lot of people were quitting at my company. Most of my colleagues I started working with in January started quitting. Like everyone was quitting left and right because management did a lot of choices because of COVID that not everyone agreed of, and because of that everyone was quitting. Like the colleague whose job I took over, he quit, and I had to take over all of a sudden while I didn't receive proper training, in my opinion, so I was just left with everything on the table, not knowing what to do. which was fine. I got used to the job, but because of COVID and because we were working with international companies, like selling products in Japan from international companies. I cannot disclose too much information because it's still private information after all. But basically, we were buying products from international companies which we would sell in Japan. And because COVID happened, we could not do that anymore. But my company still had to spend the amount of money for these products, so they wanted still, I don't know, make a profit or have the money on hold or like have the project on pause, like different alternatives. I mean, the best option for them was to just cancel the projects and get their money back, but obviously that wasn't as easy as they thought. One thing you have to know about Japanese companies, especially Japanese companies working with international companies, is that Japanese companies, if they are the customer, they see themselves as kings. I don't know if that's for every company, but at least for my company it was that way. While our international partners saw us as business partners, my company saw them as sellers. And since we were the buyers, we had the upper hand. Since that's how it is in Japan, but not for international companies. And that's a situation which my company didn't understand and which put me, because I was the one in between my company and the foreign companies, they put a lot of pressure on me to get what they wanted. And I had to explain it to international companies, and they explained to me that things don't work this way and that they cannot do that, but they can compromise. But then my company was not happy with the compromise they got, and they wanted other things. And so all the pressure was on me to handle that. At some point, it was about large amounts of money that me in my position, there was no way I could deal with that. Or like it was not even in my position anymore. And me and my team, we asked our department manager to join the meetings, but he would refuse. He said it's your job to fix that, even though it was out of my league. And all the pressure was on me. It was always on me. I heard insults, I heard so many bad things, and it was everything on top of me. And one day I told my team leader that I cannot do this anymore. There was so much pressure on me from my company that I could not deal with it anymore, that I was at my breaking point. And I told her I cannot do this anymore. This was also around the time my work bestie, the girl I mentioned previously, quit. So I had no one left in my company to talk to. My friend and I, we joined at the same time, so we were like work buddies, but everyone else joined years before me. So they were already a tight-knit community, and you could not say anything or criticize anyone without it coming out. Like, people would gossip a lot. And, well, anyways, so I was already in a bad mental state. And I told my manager, I cannot do that. I feel overwhelmed. It's too much for me. I don't know what to do. And this is out of my league. And she just said, deal with it. She said, it's your job. You have to deal with it. Whatever. Just deal with it. And that was the only time where I thought that seeking help was necessary, because I was just at my breaking point, but no one cared. They just didn't care about it. I don't know. And it affected my private life a lot. Like, I stopped being able to do simple things. Like, showering became a huge deal for me, especially washing my hair. I don't know why it sounds so dumb, because it's just basic hygiene, but I just could not wash my hair anymore. It became so overwhelming for me to just wash my hair and maintain hygiene that I would go 2 weeks without washing my hair. And of course I felt gross, but I just could not do it. And chores, I could not do basic chores. Like sometimes it would rain and my laundry was hanging outside in the rain and I just didn't have the energy to take it in, and it would sit there for days outside. Like it would rain and then it would dry again and it was just hanging there, and if I needed clothes I just would go to the balcony and just take the clothes from there. I just couldn't bring them in. I couldn't wash the dishes, I could not cook, I could not do anything basically. And I also had really bad mood swings. And if you know, I live with my boyfriend, and my boyfriend was overwhelmed with me. He even noticed the changes in my mood. I was having all kinds of emotions. I was complaining a lot. I was getting angry without a reason. I don't know, I was just always in a bad mood. And God, I was so tired. I was so tired of waking up. I got scared of going to bed at night, so I would stay awake until 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m. I just could not sleep. I didn't want to sleep. It's not that I couldn't sleep. I did not want to sleep because I was scared of work. I didn't want the morning to come. I wanted more free time. I wanted to extend my free time and not think about work. So I got really bad sleeping habits. And I was wondering if everything I'm doing is even worth it. Like, I don't know. Like, I was so unhappy with everything that was going on that I didn't even know what to do. And I started doing, I don't know why, because I think at some point I realized that something was wrong is when my boyfriend said I should do something because the way I was acting was not myself. So I did some online tests, like to see if I was depressed, and every test I took showed a sign of severe depression. And I knew I had to fix it. I knew I had to do something, but I didn't know how, and I didn't have the courage. And also I was overwhelmed. I didn't know where to start. I didn't know how to look for a clinic. I didn't know how to do anything. And I also didn't have the energy, to be honest. If you've seen my vlogs, you know that I have an autoimmune disease, and that every 3 months I need to go to the hospital to get my blood work done and to get new medication. So the day I went to the hospital, which is a bigger hospital with a lot of different faculties, so they also have a mental health department, I asked my doctor if it's okay to book a mental health appointment. And she said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No, I'm actually really struggling right now." And she said, "Oh, you need to see someone as soon as possible." And she made an appointment for me that day. And I remember sitting in the waiting area of the mental health faculty, just crying because I felt overwhelmed. And I didn't know if the person or the doctor would listen to my problems and would understand my problems. I don't know, I just remember crying and being overwhelmed because I just didn't know what was wrong. And throughout the whole session, I was just crying. I was telling him how I felt, what I went through, all the pressure that was on me, that there's nothing I could do. And I just told him everything, and he understood, and he said that you need to get out of there as soon as possible. And he put me on sick leave. I went on a Saturday. And then he said, "You are on sick leave. Like right on Monday, you don't have to go to work." And I said, "Well, I need to tell my supervisors that, well, I'm taking a break. And so he said, well, then work on Monday, and then from Tuesday on, you're on break. So he put me on sick leave for 3 months. For 3 months, I was on. I mean, it was estimated for 3 months, and then based on my situation, it would be extended. When I told everyone in my team about my situation, of course, my supervisor, they were all understanding, but at the same time, I didn't have the guts to tell them the real reason. I told them that, of course, it was work stress, but not in particular every detail of how I felt and how I was treated, because I wasn't treated nicely. I wasn't treated nicely in any way. Like, I haven't gone into detail, but I was not treated nicely. I didn't say and I didn't blame anyone, I just said it was work stress, even though I should have. But since I didn't quit, I just went on a break. I didn't want to risk losing my job, because that would have been worse. So I was put on break, and the first 2 weeks, I still got messages from my old company, and every time I got a message, I would break out in a sweat. I felt so anxious, I felt so nauseous, I felt so bad getting messages from my old company that it gave me instant anxiety. I felt horrible. I remember walking around in Ikebukuro and getting a message from my team leader, and I just had to sit down and take a medication I was taking to calm myself down, because I was in such a panic. I felt so horrible getting her text, even though it was nothing big. She wasn't being mean or anything. And she assured me that they would wait for my return and that everything would be okay, and, well, all that kind of stuff. So, I had to go to the doctor every 2 weeks throughout my sick leave, and then it got reduced to once a month. And every time the topic of work came up, I became anxious, I became stressed, I became scared, and it was obvious that I could not go back. It was just obvious that I didn't feel like going back and that I didn't want to go back. So my sick leave got extended. Every month it got extended until a point where my company messaged me almost 1 year later. Like, I took a break for 1 year, and they told me they set an ultimatum, and they said that if I don't go back now, that they would have to ask me to resign. And in Japan, a company cannot fire you, especially if you're a permanent worker. So I wasn't able to be fired, but the company can push you into quitting, and they would do that. So they told me either I leave or I come back. By that time, my old company set that ultimatum. It was almost a year since I took my break, and I hadn't found another job. I mean, to be honest, I was not really looking for another job. I just, I mean, I was looking, but I was not intensively looking for a new job. I was kind of looking on the side and applying here and there, but I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking, but I just pushed everything aside in my head. I cannot even describe it. Like, the thought about going back to work was just not present in my head. It was just like, I'm living my life now. I'm having this break, and I'm living my life now. And I was not thinking about, I don't know, my company or going back to work or basically anything other than living in the moment, kinda. Yeah, and once the deadline came close, the ultimatum my company put me in, I panicked. and I was like crazy looking for new jobs. I applied to many companies, but of course, it did not work out. At the end of the day, I had to go back to my old company. And since my old team said they would wait for me and leave my spot open, I thought, okay, I will go back to my old team. Things will get better because they understand that I was struggling. They will be more understanding. They won't put me into any bad situations anymore. But that was not what happened. They basically hired someone else to do my job. So my position was gone 3 months after I went into sick leave. They hired someone else and kicked me out of the team, and I had nowhere to go. I was still employed by that company, but they said they had no positions for me other than Narita. That's where Narita Airport is, which is almost 2 hours away from me, and that they only had positions for me in Narita. And I said, I cannot go to Narita. That's a 4 hour commute every day. And they said, well, that's everything we have for you. Knowing that I was struggling mentally, they knew. They wanted me to quit. Eventually, it came down that my HR manager, he took me in to his team knowing that I'm no use because I don't know about Japanese health systems, I don't know about Japanese taxes, I have no idea how everything worked. So, but I thought that maybe it's a good start. I was trying to be positive, I was trying to, well, make the best of it, and I thought that, well, maybe I can help to input data into the system, that I can learn some things, and that I would do a basic office job. But that was not the case. I was the person who had to do all the tasks no one else wanted to do. And I had asked them for reduced working hours since it was the first time going back to work after my break. And usually in other countries, you get reduced working hours or less working hours to introduce you back into the job. But they said no. I had to go back full time right from the start. And at first, I was really motivated. I did my hair, I dressed nicely, I put on makeup. And all the tasks I got were ridiculous, honestly. I had to clean the coffee machine. I had to scan documents the whole day for 8 hours straight, like standing next to the scanner and just scanning files and files and files. One time I had to download 700 PDF files. And you could not download them all at once. You had to download every single one individually. And I know it sounds like if I tell this, everyone would be like, "Oh, but that sounds like easy tasks." Yeah, those were easy tasks. Everyone could do them. And that was the point. Everyone could just do it. I was just, in fact, it showed me that I didn't matter because everyone could do it. It was nothing that I needed skills for, which I had. I had working skills. But I felt like I was not even using my brain at work. I was just sitting there, and it did not matter if I came or not. It did not matter if those files get saved today or scanned today. It just didn't matter if I was there or not. And just knowing that and thinking that way every single day was just unbearable. And my company believed in micromanaging. So every time I was sitting in the office and I looked like I had nothing to do, or taking a break to drink something, they would come up with more random tasks. I hated going to the office. And like I said in the beginning, I used to be someone with a lot of energy, getting ready for work, and after coming to the realization that I was just bearable, I stopped caring about the way I looked. I stopped wearing makeup, I stopped dressing nicely, I was just there to pass the time. And I know I looked horrible and I felt horrible, but there was nothing else I could do. I was just happy that I made it out of bed and dragged myself to the office at some point. I also had to take the train during the rush hour, which was extremely stressful for me. I hate the rush hour and I hate taking the train during the rush hour. It was just like being suffocated physically and mentally. Like you've been physically suffocated in the train and then you just get suffocated at work because everything is just unbearable. And it was just, yeah, the only pleasure I found was by spending my money, like going to Animate during my lunch breaks, which was really close back then, and to eat. And I would snack so much during my work hours. I was just basically eating the whole time and snacking on cookies, on everything. And I ended up gaining 25 kilograms since being diagnosed with depression. I did not look like this. In 2020, I almost had a six pack because I was working out so much. I was doing hot yoga, I was doing home workouts because of COVID. I just couldn't do anything anymore. Could not eat healthy, could not working out, could not take care of my body. So well, yeah, I gained weight. And it's been really hard on me because I know I gained weight. My friends know I gained weight. My family knows I gained weight. And the first thing I told my friends before going back and visiting Germany um, was, don't be surprised, I gained weight. Because I was so scared of what other people would think of me, of the way I looked, because I always used to be skinny. And it's been really hard to find a good balance between eating, because I like food. I like eating, I like food, and I'm still tired. It's hard to find a balance even now. Basically had no energy left. Like the little energy I had left was completely gone. Like that, it felt like the last spark in me was gone by that time. And I was feeling, I could not sleep. I was awake again until the early hours. I had to wake up at 7 to get to work. I had to take the rush hour train. I was feeling suffocated and I hated everything so much. It was insane. It's so hard to describe how you feel, but I opted for physical pain because I could not stand the way I was feeling. So I went in with physical pain and I harmed myself, which is never a good thing to do. But it was the only option I had at that time to just get rid of my emotional pain. It was the only way I had. And the only way I could go to work. So, and I thought I had hit my lowest point before I went on my sick leave. I thought that was my lowest point, but I feel like the more I stayed at that company, knowing that I don't matter, like I really did, my job didn't matter, I as a person didn't matter, nothing what I did mattered. It was just, it was just the worst feeling I ever had. I called in sick so many times. I called in sick at least 4 to 5 times a month, and I had no paid holidays left. And because of my sick leave, because I took an absence of 1 year, I was not eligible for paid holidays for 1.5 years, they told me. And in Japan, there's no sick days either. So I would lose pay every month, and missing 5 to 6 days a week, it's a lot of money for me. So I was making minus every month, and that caused me stress as well, because every month I would struggle with money and I would struggle with going to work, and it was just an endless cycle of pain. Now looking back at it, it was just the worst time for me. I felt horrible. Like, I cannot even describe the way I felt. I just didn't matter. Me as a person didn't matter, my emotions didn't matter. I just felt empty. And I knew I wouldn't last long, to be honest. I knew that if I don't do something now, I would not last another year. So in September, around September of last year of 2023, I started looking for jobs intensively, and it was just bad. Like, job hunting is bad in itself. Like, it's exhausting, it's tiring, it's stressful. But doing that while you're working full time in an office without being able to take off unless it's unpaid, and losing salary for a job you don't even know if you want it or if you're gonna get it, there was no point in doing that. So what I did is I took interviews during my lunch break, standing in the staircase of my old office building, or I finished work at 6 and I ran home, rushed home to take interviews at 7, so that I had a chance of finding something. Sometimes I had no free time for 2, 3 weeks in a row because I was just doing interviews and meetings with companies. They're called Mendan. I think that's pre-interview, like informative meeting kinda. And then you decide if you want to go ahead and do an interview with them. So I was doing Mendan, I was doing the interviews, and that's every single day while going to work and while struggling with the will of even getting up in the morning. Like, I didn't want to wake up anymore. It got so bad that I really wished I wouldn't wake up. Which is a horrible thing to say, to be honest. Um, but that's how I was feeling. And then I filmed that video. I have it somewhere here, like I will blend the thumbnail in. And everyone commented, and there were so many people feeling the same, and it was so reassuring that I wanted to keep fighting to find a better place, to be able to get out of that hell. And eventually I did. I did find a new job, like you all know. I got out of there. I got lucky, but I know that if it wasn't for this job I have now, I probably wouldn't be here telling my story, because I know I wouldn't have lasted another year. Just knowing that makes me actually really scared. So now, after changing my job and being able to work remotely for the most part, I actually feel much better. It's been 6 months since I changed my job. I'm able to go to work every day, but that's mostly because I'm able to work remotely. If it weren't for the option to work remotely, I don't think I would have lasted. I have a really nice team. I really have a really nice team and I appreciate everyone. And while I still struggle, especially with exhaustion is a pretty big part of my struggle still, and just finding the energy to do things like eating healthy or working out or like doing chores. It's still difficult for me to do, and I have bad days and I have good days. I have my ups and downs, and it's better. I'm better than I used to be, but I'm scared that I will never go back to the way I used to be before everything happened. It makes me sad that this person or this version of me is gone and that I can't get that person back. But I'm just trying my best right now to. But now I'm trying to find and be someone new, like a new version of myself. Not saying a better version because I don't think that I can get better, but just to live the way I am right now. Oh, and a few things I found out after quitting, after it was decided that I quit my job. The girl who replaced me in my old position, I used to talk to her from time to time, try to communicate with her and be friends with her because she was a foreigner like I was. But she was really, really distant to me, and she seemed like she didn't like me for no reason. And after I quit, she messaged me, or once it was decided that I quit, she messaged me and she told me that the reason why she was acting the way she did towards me was that my previous team leader, the one who said they would wait for me, was talking badly behind my back, and she would call me Shippai Saku Kohai. How would you translate that? Shippai is like mistake. Saku is like I will have the kanji down here, but it's basically like false production kohai. Like that I was a false creation of hers. That's how she would call me, and that she hated me for the way I abandoned the team and the way I treated our department manager by not messaging him even though I was on sick leave and they know I was struggling. And she would act so nice and friendly in front of me. She would ask me, how was your Christmas? How are you doing? But behind my back, I know they all were talking about me. I was always treated the worst. Like my friend who started at the same time as I did, she was never treated the same way I was treated. She was an Asian foreigner, like she was from Asia. I won't say which country she's from, but she was from Asia, so maybe there was the difference. But she was never treated the same way I was. Like everything I did was wrong, even before my sick leave. Like, for example, it was just stupid things. Like, I would set up a meeting and I would write the title of the meeting, like meeting for this and that. And I got yelled at because I didn't have a meeting description. But if my friend did that, it was no problem. Or I would get yelled at because I should have started the meeting 10 minutes before the meeting starts, even though everyone just joined like 2 minutes before the meeting starts. I would get scolded for everything. Everything I did was wrong. Everything I did was wrong. And then after my sick leave, everything I did wouldn't matter. So yeah, that is how I felt for almost 4 years. Like I said, I'm doing better. I'm still having my ups and downs. And I thought that I would be ready to stop medication. But recently I ran out of my medication before my next doctor's appointment, and it led to a breakdown. And it made me realize that I still need medication even though I'm out of that place. And the way Japan handles mental health is just by giving out medication. There's barely any therapy going on, and the therapy that is available is usually really expensive because it's not a common thing to have therapy, which is making things difficult too. So, yeah, I'm still trying to find my way and just hope that things in the future get better and that mental health gets widely acknowledged in Japan and that people get a better understanding of mental health problems. I really hope that. And if you know someone who's struggling, I know you cannot help them, but please try to be there for that person and support them as much as you can, because it's not a nice feeling. It's not a nice feeling, even though they seem okay from the outside, like you don't have any physical wounds or you won't be able to see it, but the way a person feels inside is just horrible. Anyways, thank you for listening to my story, and I hope to see you soon and in my next vlog. Take care, everyone.